Good morning and happy Sunday, everybody. Thank you so much for joining us here at Earth and Sky. We love all of you out in the virtual world, and I hope you've already grabbed your cup of coffee or your cup of tea as you watch us this morning. I love this time of year, and it's a perfect time of year for you to hit that like button on our Facebook page or hit the subscribe button if you haven't already done so, because this is the time of the harvest. And so this is that time when all of those things we've been working on throughout the year, those goals we set in January, all of that busyness we've had through the summer, we're seeing results of that coming in. We're seeing the fruition. We're seeing things coming up. We're having blessings start multiplying in our lives. Sometimes with that comes a little bit of stress, a little bit of another boost of activity, that final bit of summer before we come into the winter time. So with that, this year our theme has been the Wheel of the Year, and so we've been working with the Wheel of the Year with each of the major holidays. So I get really excited when it's time to turn the wheel, because that means the seasons are changing and it's time to move forward and to progress, not only with the seasons but in our lives. It gives us a roadmap for how to set goals, how to find a way to stay on track with things, how to see end goals sometimes. Sometimes we get so busy in our lives it's hard to see the end, and where do we see the finish line. So this Wheel of the Year really helps with that. We started down here with Yule. Yule is December 21st. Usually it's somewhere between the 20th to the 23rd. Usually it falls right around the 21st. And Yule is that time of year, it's the darkest night, the longest night of the year, the shortest day of the year, and it's that time of year where we really gather with friends and family. It's, Christmas time, and we're in the homes a lot more often because of weather, and also because it just gets darker. It's a nice time to curl up, to start planning your goals, to assess what you've done throughout the last year. And then we move from Yule up to Imbolc, and Imbolc is the lambing season in the Celtic, where it first started in the Celtic era, or the Celtic region. And so it was when the lambs would start producing their milk, and you're starting to see those first signs of life of spring, just those very, very early first signs of life. And so we represented that with Imbolc. And then we moved over here to Ostara, and Ostara is where we have the fairy season that starts to come in. And it's that March time, and it's just a really nice awakening. You're really seeing those early signs of spring starting to come alive. A lot of times in March and in April, you'll start finding, if you are into the fairies, you'll start realizing that things may be missing or moved around your house, especially anything shiny, keys, coins, things like that. If you notice that some of those things are happening, it might be the fairies that are messing with you a little bit. That tends to be right in March and April. And then we move up to Beltane in May, and Beltane is the 1st of May. It's where you're really heralding the spring has gone through. We're getting ready to start summer. It's a very exciting time. Then we go, actually, and just to mention that Ostara is another one where it's an equinox. So this was the longest night of the year. Ostara was where we have equal parts light and dark. Depending on where you are in the world, it's relatively equal for the light and dark. So you're focusing on equilibrium and balance in your life. And then by the time we got to Beltane, then the light is starting to come around a bit more, and you're starting to really be able to see the signs of light. Then we moved up here to Lunasa, which is also called Lammas, depending on which tradition you're celebrating from. Lammas had a little bit more of a Christian influence. Lunasa was more of the Celtic influence. This is the exact opposite of Yule, which means this is when we have the longest day of the year. People who love summer love Lunasa, because that's when you have the longest day of the year. I think that's what I said. And you have the most light. You get in that height of activity and shorter nights, and you're just being able to be very productive, moving through the seasons there. And so that's when the Sun King really returns in his full glory and is really active here and bringing blessings, bringing up the seeds that were planted back in the spring. And so you're starting to see those crops really come forth, getting ready for the harvest. And the harvest is what we started right here with actually, sorry, this is midsummer. This is Lunasa. I mixed that up in my head. Midsummer, and then Lunasa is the first of the fall seasons. I think I've been going a little bit too much today, mixing up my words here. But Lunasa is the first of the harvest seasons. So where you had the Sun King that returned at the height of summer, now you're starting to see all of those fruits of your work. So if you were a farmer, which is where a lot of this wheel originated, was in the farming times, then you're seeing those crops coming up. You're being able to share with those around you for the having those first bites of the harvest. And then you move from Lunasa up to Mabon, which is today. So we're going to go ahead and carefully turn this wheel here, bringing Mabon up to the top. And we'll see if this will stay here for us. Fantastic. So Mabon is one of my favorite holidays. It's my second favorite, I think, or third favorite. I like this whole time of the year here, from Mabon through Yule. I just love this time of year. And Mabon is where we have the equilibrium again. So we have the quarter days. The quarter days are Yule, which is the longest night of the year, Midsummer, which is the longest day of the year, Ostara, which is the equal parts, that's also known as the spring equinox, equal parts light and dark, and then Mabon, which is also equal parts light and dark. But at this point, the sun is beginning to travel from the north to the south, and it's starting to enter into the southern hemisphere. So we have been having our summer here in the northern hemisphere, and it's actually going to be the reverse in the southern hemisphere. So as this transforms for us, our friends on the other side of this planet will be starting to have longer days. So that is another example of the balance that just happens in life. It's part of the planet, it's part of all life. So we have the quarter days here, and then it's called the cross quarter days, where we have Imbolc, Beltane, Lunasa, and coming up here soon will be Samhain. So it makes it easy to remember because you have 8 parts. You have the quarter days, which are all based on the weather, basically, the light and the dark, and then the cross quarter days, which originated with the Celts. And so we bring a lot of those traditions forward. It gives us a great way to celebrate all year long because we can see our progress, we can track, we can plan out how we want to live our lives, how we can achieve our goals, how we can stay on track with life, because life can sometimes move past us really quickly if we're not careful, and we'll suddenly realize years have gone by and we still haven't done those things that we really wanted to do, and we haven't really pulled out of a rut, and we've figured there will always be time, and there's not always time. We have no idea how much time we will have left. And so by using this wheel of the year and tracking your goals, tracking your dreams, tracking what it is you want to do, you'll be able to progress through this. It also works as a very nicely for your circadian rhythms, because we all are impacted with the melatonin and other chemicals in our brain with that sleep-wake cycle that's influenced by the light-dark cycle. Now, there are a lot of people who unfortunately do need to work jobs that are third shift jobs, and that can be very challenging because it really it's hard for the body to adapt to that. But regardless of if you are out at night or if you have a normal job during the day, you're going to still be able to follow this wheel of the year and being able to plan out your seasons, planning out your goals. So at this time, we've talked throughout the year about having a gratitude box and writing daily something that you appreciated through the year, something, or each day, something you appreciated, something that worked out well for you, something that felt like a blessing to you, something that inspired you, whatever it is that's a positive in your life that day. I hope you've been continuing to write that down and put it in your gratitude box. This is a perfect time of year to open that up and look through a few of those. Pull out 3 or 4 or 5 of those and just read and see what they say. Just dig down deeper into it and randomly pull things out. It's a great way to see and remember some of the blessings in our life. Sometimes it falls away from our memory, the things that have been really good, that have blessed us, that have been inspiring to us. And so it's nice to dig through. Sometimes those are just really small moments, but when you look back on them, they're big things to remember. So this is a perfect time, if you've been doing that gratitude box, go back in there, look at some of those memories. And if you're wanting to know exactly when the equinox happens, this year it's September 22nd at 4:02 p.m. Eastern Time. So if you're wanting to celebrate or do a ritual or just take a couple minutes out of your day and pause and reflect on equilibrium and balance in your life, and you want to do it at that moment where our planet is aligned the most in balance, it would be at 4:02 p.m. on the 22nd. So you can do your celebration of this time of year at any point during this season, though, too. So if you want to do something to celebrate today, you can do it today since it's a Sunday. Or if you want to do it, any time coming up this week, it's a great time to celebrate. And the important thing is just being able to remember and take that time for yourself. And really the season that we're coming up to right now is a time where it's so crucial to remember to take time out for yourself, because you have probably been very busy through the summer. I've noticed most of the people that we know have had an extraordinarily busy summer, more so than than they normally do. And so I'm guessing a lot of you out there have had a really busy summer, a lot of things you've been working on. And so all of that is extroverted activity. All of that through this whole time of the year is where we're really exerting a lot outside. We're putting out a lot of our energies. And then as we come into the harvest time, so this is the second of the 3 harvest festivals. We had Lunasa, Mabon, and then Samhain is coming up to complete those 3 harvest festivals. This is a time of gathering, of Thanksgiving. Mabon was traditionally a time of Thanksgiving in the region where you would actually gather the first of the mid part of the crops, and you would share with your neighbors, and people would see that as a way to gain favor with the gods and the goddesses, was to share those crops. And then in doing so, then that ensures your harvest within yourself will be bountiful so that you can survive through the winter. So if you take that and you apply that into more modern day terms, because not very many of us are farmers anymore, you can still figure out what can you use that's in your life that maybe you can bless others with. Or maybe you can do it a little bit more literally and have a potluck with friends where you invite people over and share dishes. Maybe try to make it a theme of sharing things that are fresh this time of year, fresh fruits and vegetables, maybe baking bread, things like that that are associated with this time of Thanksgiving, this time of harvest, and really bringing that joy and that laughter and that conversation into people that you care about. Because as we're turning the wheel this way, it's that time of family. It's that time we start to come into our homes more. We start to do more introspection in the winter. And right now we're gathering friends and family. So we've gone from planning to doing to family, and then it'll be back into planning and introspection. So during this time of family and friends, and family doesn't mean your biological family necessarily, it can be your friends who you've chosen to take on as family. So whatever that means to you, gather those people that are most important in your life before we get into this huge time of Thanksgiving and Christmas, where we have a lot to do and a lot of that centered around friends and family. But before we get into the height of that, plan something and do a Mabon celebration, do a Fall Equinox celebration, and see what everybody can gather to bring together. Maybe you'll do something where you have in exchange. If it's a potluck, instead of taking your own dish home, share with, switch dishes with somebody else. Think of some creative ways where you can really honor the fact that this is that harvest time. It's often easy to forget with grocery stores now that we have, and the mass-produced food that we have, that foods are seasonal. There's a lot of foods that are really seasonal: pumpkins, squashes, all of those different things, the corn, things like that. And it's nice to be able to get back in touch with this because I think our bodies really adapt well to eating whatever is in season at that time of year. I think we have a natural rhythm within ourselves, and when you honor that and you really try to bring that in, it actually adds to your health, it adds to your energy, it adds to the whole energy of the season too. If you have an altar at home, or if you have a table at home that you like to decorate for this time of year, pine cones are a wonderful thing to decorate with. There's a lot that goes with pine cones. The geometric pattern that's within pine cones is really a sacred pattern. There's a whole lot of information about the numerology of that swirl of the pine cone. There are so many different levels of the symbolism of the pine cone. So that's a wonderful thing to have on your altar. Or dried leaves, if you want to go out. This is a wonderful time of year, again, to go outside too, because you're going to want to take in those walks in the woods before it gets too cold out there to do so. And it's so beautiful. We have these warm autumn days. Wow, I'm really mixing up my words. I'm just so excited. It's this time of year. So we have the warm autumn days and we have the cool autumn nights. So we are getting that balance that way as well. So choose a warm day. Go out walking in the woods and gather up some leaves. Maybe gather up some twigs that look nice to you, or some stones that look nice to you, and add those to either your altar or plate table you'd like to decorate in your home. And that can be a space where it just reminds you, each time you walk past that area, it reminds you that this is a time of year to have thanks and to reflect on what you've done through the year, because it's important, as important as it was to do planning at the beginning of the year, and as important as it was to be active and do the things you needed to do through the summer, it's equally important now to have thanks to yourself for doing all of that work, to give reflection to the friends and the family that have helped you through it too, because it truly does take a village, and most people out there don't do it all on their own. It's a village. It's the people around them that contribute to what they have and what they do, and you probably contribute a lot to other people as well. So take this time to reflect, bring your village together. And also on your altar or decorating table, you can have pumpkins or squashes. Anything that represents this time of year is perfect to lay out. There's such a thing with the pumpkin spice everything now, and I kind of fall into that a little bit with the pumpkin spice coffee. And sometimes I like to reflect as I'm drinking my coffee with the pumpkin spice. I just really like to reflect on all of these things, thinking about who I'm grateful for, thinking about the changing of the season, thinking about what's coming up with the holiday season. And so it's a great time to reflect. It's also a good time to reflect on your goals that you set at the beginning of the year. Sometimes by this time of the year we forgot what it was that we talked about in January. We forgot what those goals, what those resolutions were. And it's a nice time to go back and remember what they were, and then see where you are with your progress with it too. And don't be critical, don't be harsh on yourself if you forgot some of them and you've fallen off track and you haven't even got started. Instead, think about which things you have gotten started on, which things you did accomplish, which things you're maybe just partway through getting done, and reflect on that. Take in the fact of what you've accomplished this year. This is a perfect week to really take in all the things that you've done through this year so far. It's really important to reflect back on that and pay attention to those things. It's kind of, if you're equating this to a birthing, this is the time of year where where the maiden gets pregnant around Yule, and then she's gestating through all of this. Midsummer, she's giving birth to your ideas, your projects, whatever it is you're giving birth to. And then by this time of year, it's starting to really awaken. You're starting to see that newborn babe. You're starting to see that growth of the idea that's happening within you. You're seeing growth. Maybe it's a new house you've been looking at. Maybe it's a new job you're considering, and this is the time of year some of that's starting to unfold and open up. Whatever those goals and dreams are, this is the time to really notice that gestation that occurred here and the birthing that occurred there, and seeing how it's coming alive, how your goals, how your dreams, how your inspirations are coming alive, and what do you need to work on to make it happen. If it hasn't happened yet, what steps do you need to take to make those things happen so that you can really enjoy the rest of the harvest season, so you can feel like you're where you want to be with this. This is also a great time to take a respite and just really reflect. Pretty soon we're going to be pulling out our coats and preparing for big meals, and so this is a really good time to take time for yourself. You also should plan on your calendar. If you plan your calendar out in advance, mark some days through the holiday season that you'll be taking out for yourself, because it gets really busy on an internal level. It's different than the summer, but we still have a lot of things we start accomplishing more for the home and more for family at this time of year, and so you don't get too swept up in that. I'd recommend you put, even if it's one day a month on your calendars for October, November, and December, to set that that's a day for you, or maybe it's an afternoon for you, and figure out something that you want to do. Maybe you want to spoil yourself at the spa, or maybe you want to go out camping, or you might be a little chilly, but sometimes that's nice to do too. Figure out what it is that you like to do and set some dates on the calendar just for you to do that, to get away, so you can have time to be alone, so you can have time to reflect, because that's really important with the season coming up, is having that time to really go inward, to go deep within yourself without the influence of everybody else. And so schedule those dates out now before it gets too busy. This is also a really good time for embracing change. If you notice the pattern of animals around you, I'm surprised I haven't put more animals on the wheel. We just have the lamb down here and the butterfly.
There's more space.
We'll be working on that soon, through the next year as well. But the animals you're noticing are going into hibernation. They're planning and they're preparing for how they're going to handle this next time of year. They're busy digging their dens. At this point, pretty much all the animals have figured out where they're going to burrow. Even if they don't do a full hibernation, they've figured out where they're going to burrow. Squirrels are sorting away their nuts, things like that. And so they're planning that same way, and they're embracing the change. They're accepting that this is something that's coming. They're not thinking, oh boy, I really don't want to dig this hole for myself. I guess I need to do it, or I'll be really cold this winter. They just do it. They embrace the change. They feel the season coming. So try to work on that mindset within yourself. Often change can be hard for people. It seems like a human condition where we get resistant to change. It seems like there are very few people who actually get really excited in embracing change. And whether it's moving around within your office, whether it's moving things around within your home, whether it's shuffling projects, whether it's learning some things you need to let go of. Maybe there were certain things you planned to have at this beginning part of the year, and you're realizing that's not really working out. You're going in a different direction. Well, embrace that change. Whatever those changes are, embrace that. You just love yourself through it, enjoy, and see what you can learn through the change, and just allow that love energy, embracing the change energy, to flow through you. That's a really pivotal thing this time of year as well. And let's see. Making plans too. So if you're scheduling out those days for yourself, plan on what you're going to do in between that too, because you need more than just one day a month for time for yourself. So do you want to schedule to plan and have some time to read a good book in the evenings? Or do you want to plan on maybe you need to get a massage more this winter, or maybe DIY projects at your house, or self-help classes, anything like that. Just sorting through, making sure you really get that scheduled in to this time of year coming up. And Also, one last thing I wanted to mention was that endings are really a good time to celebrate our successes, to thank ourselves, and to thank those who help us. And this is a time of year where we're starting to really see that the endings of projects, the changes of things, letting go of so much that's external and bringing it into a more internal level. And so as you face endings in your life, whatever those endings are, whether it's that you're having to say goodbye to somebody who is dear to you, or maybe you're having to let go of things that are in your house, or whatever those endings are, it might be a project you've really enjoyed working on. And sometimes it's hard. Sometimes I hear with artists that they'll start to work on a project and it's about trying to figure out when to let that piece go, because there's so much that can always be added into it. Whatever the endings are in your life, recognize that endings are a good time too, and celebrate your successes. Give thanks to yourself and to those who have helped you as well. Enjoying the balance of life is really one of the key things this time of year. This time is where we have that equal part light and dark. And so it's really about equilibrium. It's about having that equal part of being really active and that equal part of rest. And sometimes it's hard to shift into that. I know I found myself a little bit lately myself where I'm just still really so active and so busy working on all the things I've been planning out and working on through summer, and I need to really pull back in and figure out where I can pare back, where I can cut down a little bit so that I can get that equal parts with the having enough time to rest and having enough time to be active. It's really important for all of us, and so I encourage you to figure out where you can do that. Schedule that time in for yourself. Put those things out on your table, whether it's acorns or pumpkins or leaves or cranberries or whatever it is that you want to have on your table, and use that as you walk by to really give gratitude for the season, to remind you of where you're going, and taking that time out to celebrate with friends. So thank you so much for joining us as we talk about Mabon. I look forward to next week, where we are actually celebrating our 1-year anniversary at Earth and Sky. It's hard to believe it's been an entire year that we've been doing this. It has just flown by. I hope you like the new backdrop that we put up here too. We just got that up earlier today. We're working on transforming this whole space. Eventually we're going to have the whole room into an interesting canopy of some sort. It's falling together in pieces, so it's really neat to see it unfolding. And we will be doing another gong immersion coming up, so if you're interested in that, that will be back in this space again. We also have classes going on currently. The chakra classes are Monday nights at 6 o'clock at Right Natural Health. That's from 6 to 7, and so you can feel free to join us in on that. I have a numerology class coming up. I have 1 seat left in that class. If you're interested in taking that, that's on Thursday nights. It starts at 7:30. So I will talk to you next week, and I hope you enjoyed this. Please leave your comments and feedback down below. Remember to hit that subscribe button on YouTube and hit the notifications button so you can choose if you want all of our notifications or if you just want some of the notifications. Have a wonderful day.